I choose to believe the Bible because it's a
reliable collection of historical documents written by eyewitnesses during the lifetime of other eyewitnesses, which document events, supernatural events which took place in fulfillment of specific prophecies. These claim to be of divine origin rather than human origin. This is the Word of God.
What if the most important story in history was presented like a courtroom case? A man accused, questioned, and ultimately sentenced. Jesus of Nazareth, the man who claims to be Christ. This Holy Week, I'm putting this story on trial. For this week only, join me in reflection with my Holy Week Bible art series. They're calling him a king. Just days ago, they welcomed him into Jerusalem with palm branches. And the crowds, they're only gathering and listening. He walks into the temple and starts overturning everything, like someone sent him there. He's disrupting everything we've allowed, our authority. And worse, he's now teaching openly, challenging us in front of everyone. The people are listening, and something has to be done. Jesus was a disruptor, and it was this very thing that sealed his fate. From birth, his life unsettled power, a king so threatened that he ordered every innocent male child to be killed. At 12, he was already sitting among scholars, questioning and teaching and challenging everything that they thought they knew. But it was during his ministry as an adult that everything escalated. This ministry produced urgency in leaders at the time to have him killed. Because, contrary to popular belief, Jesus actually challenged religious systems. And on this day, Holy Wednesday, the fate that we are talking about was sealed. Judas Iscariot, one of Jesus' very own apostles, agreed to betray him for 30 pieces of silver. And shockingly, Jesus would expose his knowledge of this tomorrow in what we call Maundy Thursday. Follow me to enjoy my Holy Week series. Thanks for watching. Jesus was a disruptor, and it was this very thing that sealed his fate. Because, contrary to popular belief, Jesus actually challenged religious systems. And so it was on a day like this, what we now call Maundy Thursday, roughly 2,000 years ago, that Jesus sat down for one last supper, a Passover meal with his disciples. Here he exposed his knowledge that one of his very own at that table would be the one to hand him over to his executioners. This is my Holy Week series. Historians believe that roughly 2,030 years ago, a child was born in a manger, and everything that followed was leading to this moment. Jesus challenged the order of King Herod to have every firstborn male killed, so threatened by this prophecy of this king of the Jews. At 12, Jesus was already teaching grown men in the synagogue when he ran away from his parents. He set out to right the wrongs that these people had interpreted of the gospel. It was his act at about 30 years old during the start of his ministry that produced urgency in leaders to have him killed. Jesus sat with sinners. Jesus accepted women who had been earlier ostracized by their community. Jesus healed on the Sabbath, and he turned over tables in the temple, calling for them to respect it as the house of the Lord. He challenged authority, and they regarded him as blasphemous. And for this, he was to be put to death. But of course, religious leaders cannot carry that out, so they had to hand him over to Roman leaders. But it's not Good Friday yet, so I'll stick with what happened today. After the Last Supper, Judas identified Jesus with a kiss in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he was arrested. Thanks for watching. Jesus was a disruptor. Contrary to popular belief, he actually challenged religious systems, and this had him killed. But that same disruption is why so many people, especially those overlooked by society, felt seen and heard and drawn to him, including his very own disciples. But had they been fooled? This is my Holy Week series. These 12 men had so closely and courageously followed and supported Jesus' ministry, leaving behind their jobs and families and old ways of living, in belief that this man who demonstrated so many miracles was exactly who he claimed to be. But suddenly, this same man could not even save himself. By early morning, the trial before Pilate had begun, and the verdict was in by sunrise. Around 9 a.m., he was nailed to the cross, and at 3 p.m., the land shook. This man, who just a few days ago was welcomed into Jerusalem as a king with palm leaves, was now dead in between two criminals. He himself, a criminal of blasphemy, now at the mercy of those he was supposed to reach. Jesus was seemingly now just a frail man too, who was also at the mercy of death and the sins of the world. This man tricked us, or maybe this has something to do with the temple he spoke about rebuilding. So why do we call it Good Friday? Well, we know the ending of the story, so we can call it good. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Jesus was a disruptor. The New Testament records him pushing back against hypocrisy, prioritizing people over strict laws that were merely performative, welcoming outsiders, and teaching that love and a direct relationship with God mattered most. Through this and his many demonstrations of miracles, people began to love, believe, and trust him, including his very own disciples who followed him closely. But this all ended when he was crucified. This is my Holy Week series. Saturday was silent. Jesus was buried. Roman authorities secured the tomb to avoid any claim of the disciples saying that Jesus had risen. Very little is recorded of this day. Seemingly, the disciples were observing the Sabbath and laying low. The night before, Joseph of Arimathea, hopefully I said that correctly, and Nicodemus took Jesus' body down and buried him. The Gospel of Luke records the woman preparing spices to return in the morning to give him a proper burial, so there were no plans or knowledge of a resurrection to come. Simply shame, anxiety, ridicule, and confusion. Thanks for watching. Get your mind together, sing it with me, say all to Jesus. I surrender all to thee. I freely give. I will ever love and trust him in his presence daily live. Yeah, I surrender. Jesus was a disruptor, and it was this very thing that sealed his fate. This is my What Happened After Holy Week series. Now, Jesus was a disruptor from birth, but it was his ministry as an adult that produced urgency in religious leaders to have him killed. From Palm Sunday to Resurrection Sunday, the writers of the Gospel detail how Jesus came and paid a ransom for the sins that we should have paid the penalty from that stemmed from the fall of humanity in Genesis. But what exactly happened after all of this was complete? Well, let's find out. I am presenting to you my What Happened After Holy Week series until I find a better name. So keep a lookout, follow for more, it's coming very soon. Thanks for watching. Get your mind together.